This story is titled, Divorcing My Wife After She Admitted to an Affair. She only stayed because I earned more than her affair partner. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying these stories and want to support the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps our channel. Now let's start the video. OP starts by saying, Hey guys, first time poster here. Hey Reddit. I never thought I'd be here typing all this out, but life has a way of pulling the rug out from under you, huh? I'm a 46-year-old guy, married for 19 years to my wife, who's 48. We have 2 kids, and while life wasn't perfect, I thought we were doing okay, at least until recently. Now, I don't even know anymore. So, here's the thing. A couple of weeks ago, my wife had a girls' night out with her best friend Sarah. These nights weren't unusual. She's been doing them every now and then for years, and I never questioned it. I trusted her. Stupid me, right? She left around 7 p.m., saying she wouldn't be too late, but she didn't come home until 3 a.m. That was already a red flag. She stumbled in, not drunk, but definitely off. Like, emotionally. Her face was blotchy like she'd been crying. She sat me down and just started talking. She told me Sarah had set her up on a blind date that night. A blind date. My wife? The woman I've been married to for almost 2 decades. The mother of my kids. She explained that Sarah thought it would be fun and that it wasn't serious. I just sat there, trying to process the words coming out of her mouth. She swore up and down that nothing happened. She said the guy was someone Sarah had slept with recently, and she felt it was wrong the moment she agreed to it. She said she just went to meet him, but didn't do anything. Then came the tears. Full-on waterworks. She begged me to forgive her, saying she made a mistake and that she wanted to fix things. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something didn't sit right. The whole story just felt off. Why would Sarah randomly set her up if she hadn't given her a reason to? I mean, what kind of friend does that unless they've been told it's okay? And why would my wife even agree to it in the first place? Then she made a comment that just hit me in the gut. She said the guy worked at a sawmill but didn't make much money, and that's why she realized I was the better option. It wasn't even about me as a person. It was about my paycheck. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just stared at her. My mind was racing. It wasn't just that she went on this date. It was that she'd actively considered replacing me, shopping for a better deal, so to speak. I didn't blow up or yell. I didn't throw things or demand answers. I just went numb. I told her I needed some time to think and went to bed. I couldn't even look at her. The next day, she acted like everything was normal, but inside, I was completely broken. A few days later, more things started to come to light. Sarah and my wife had a huge fallout. Suddenly, the woman who'd been her best friend for years was a manipulative liar and a jealous witch. My wife kept saying Sarah was trying to ruin her life and that she couldn't trust her anymore. It didn't take a genius to figure out what was happening. Sarah probably knew everything. Maybe she even threatened to tell me the whole story. And my wife? She was trying to get ahead of it by giving me just enough of the truth to seem honest. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how much she was holding back. Little things started clicking into place. The late-night texts she'd hide from me. The times she was suddenly too busy for family plans. Even the way she'd been dressing differently over the past few months, like she was trying to impress someone. You know what hurt the most? Wasn't even the idea that she might have cheated. It was the fact that she could do something like this to me and our kids. We've built a life together. We've been through hard times, raised 2 amazing kids, and I thought we were a team. I couldn't get over the fact that she was willing to throw all of that away. For what? A guy who works at a sawmill and couldn't even hold her interest? And if he did have a good job, would she have left me for him? I don't know if she thought confessing would fix things, or if she was just trying to control the narrative. Either way, it backfired. She didn't give me closure or clarity. She just made me question everything about our marriage and who she really is. So now I'm here. I haven't confronted her again yet because I need to be smart about this. I've started getting my financials in order. I've been looking at apartments and thinking about what a separation would look like. It sucks because we've got 2 kids, and they don't deserve to have their world blown up because of her selfishness. I haven't told anyone in my real life yet. Not family, not friends. Just you, Reddit. I don't know why I'm even posting this. Maybe I just need to get it off my chest. Maybe I'm looking for advice. All I know is, something broke inside me that night. I don't feel angry or sad anymore. I just feel done. Done with her lies. Done with pretending everything is okay. Done with trying to hold this marriage together by myself. Thanks for reading. I'll update if anything changes, but for now, I'm just trying to figure out my next move. Update 1 point. Hey Reddit, back again with more of this mess. And let me tell you, it only gets worse. If you thought the confession was bad, The aftermath has been a whole new level of chaos. I've been sitting with this for a few weeks now, and the more I think about it, the more I realize how deep this betrayal goes. So, after my wife's confession, things started falling apart. Fast. First, there was her fallout with Sarah. Now, these two have been best friends for years, like, call each other 3 times a day, best friends. But after that night, it was like they couldn't stand each other. I overheard my wife on the phone screaming about how Sarah was a toxic liar and how she was trying to ruin her life. At first, I thought maybe Sarah was the one who pushed her into the blind date. But the more I listened, I started eavesdropping. Don't judge me. The more I realized my wife wasn't mad about what Sarah did. She was mad about what Sarah might say. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Sarah knew more than my wife had told me. Maybe she even knew the whole truth. I debated reaching out to Sarah myself, but I stopped short. Would she even tell me the truth? And honestly, did I really want to hear it from her? My gut was already screaming that my wife hadn't told me everything. Every time I replayed her confession in my head, the timeline felt messier, and the story had more holes than Swiss cheese. For one, why did she come home at 3 a.m. if nothing happened? You're telling me she went out to meet this guy, realized it was a bad idea, and then what? Sat in the parking lot for 8 hours contemplating life? Nah, that doesn't track. Then there's the whole thing about the guy. She told me he worked at a sawmill, but how did she even know that? Did she just ask him over drinks? Or was it because she'd already been seeing him? The more questions I asked myself, the angrier I got. And here's the kicker. She started acting weird around me. Like, really weird. Suddenly, she was being overly nice. Cooking dinners, cleaning up more than usual, even trying to initiate. Well, you know. It felt fake, though. Like she was trying to distract me from digging any deeper. But what really tipped me off was her phone. My wife has always been glued to her phone, but now it's on lockdown. She used to leave it lying around the house, but now it's either in her pocket or face down on the counter. I asked her why, and she got defensive, saying something about work stuff. She doesn't even have a job. I knew I had to figure out what was going on, so I started paying more attention. I'm not proud of this, but I went through our phone bill. You can see who someone's been texting and calling if you really want to. And let me tell you, there were a lot of calls and texts to Sarah in the weeks leading up to that night. But after the fallout, nothing. Zero. It was like they'd gone from besties to strangers overnight. At this point, I couldn't ignore the red flags anymore. I started putting pieces together, and what I found made me sick to my stomach. A few months ago, she started dressing differently. Tighter clothes, more makeup, even perfume. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured maybe she was just trying to feel good about herself. But now, feels like she was trying to impress someone. Then there were the nights she'd suddenly have errands to run, or times she'd go out for hours and come back with nothing to show for it. I chalked it up to her needing space. But now I'm wondering if she was meeting someone. The hardest part is that I don't have solid proof. It's all these little things adding up, but no smoking gun. And honestly, even if I did have proof, would it matter? The trust is gone. Every time I look at her now, I feel like I'm staring at a stranger. Meanwhile, she keeps trying to act like everything's fine. She's talking about planning a family trip for the holidays and asking me to sit down and watch TV with her like we're some happy couple. It's surreal. I've started pulling away, and I think she notices. I'm not as chatty as I used to be. I don't initiate conversations or touch her anymore. I moved into the guest room, and she hasn't even asked me why. Maybe she knows. Maybe she's just hoping I won't follow through with leaving. I've been spending a lot of my time working on my escape plan. I've talked to a lawyer, started looking at apartments, and made a spreadsheet of all our financials. The lawyer told me to be patient and get everything in order before making a move. So that's what I'm doing. It's not easy, though. We live in a small town, less than 900 people, and everyone knows everyone. If I leave, it's going to be messy. People will talk. The kids will be caught in the middle, and I hate that. They don't deserve this. But what's the alternative? Staying in a marriage where my wife clearly doesn't respect me? Pretending everything's fine while she's sneaking around behind my back? I can't do it. I won't. I know some of you might think I should confront her again, but I'm not ready for that. Not yet. I need to be smart about this. She blindsided me with her confession, and I'm not going to let her catch me off guard again. For now, I'm playing the long game. I've started working out again, trying to channel all this anger and pain into something productive. It's not much, but it's better than sitting around stewing in it. I don't know where this road is going to take me, but I know I can't keep living like this. I deserve better. My kids deserve better. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I'll keep you posted. Update 2.0. Hey, Reddit. I'm back, and things have somehow managed to get even more complicated. After the whole mess with the blind date and everything I uncovered afterward, I was already mentally done with my marriage. But life had a different plan, and now I'm tangled in a situation I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. A couple of weeks ago, my wife got hit with some rough medical news. She's been dealing with asthma-like symptoms for a while now, but I didn't think much of it because she's always had health issues. Turns out it's not just asthma. It's something called eosinophilic asthma. Apparently, it's an autoimmune disorder where her white blood cells attack her lungs. The doctor said it can lead to scarring and other serious issues if it's not treated. Here's the kicker. The treatment is insanely expensive. There's only one medication on the market that can manage her condition. And even with insurance, the copay is $13,000. Yeah, you read that right. $13,000. When she told me, I honestly didn't know how to feel. On one hand, I wouldn't wish that kind of diagnosis on anyone, not even someone who's betrayed me. But on the other hand, I couldn't help but feel like the timing was convenient. She's suddenly all about saving the marriage, bending over backward to please me, and even setting up couples counseling. She says it's because she wants to fix things, but I can't shake the feeling that it's more about keeping access to my insurance. Without it, there's no way she can afford the treatment. Her Medicaid covers the bulk of it, only if there's another primary insurance in place, mine. I'll be honest, I've been struggling with a lot of guilt over this. I don't want to abandon her in a time of need, but I also can't ignore everything that's happened. It's a constant tug of war in my head. So let's talk about the counseling. She suggested it, and at first I thought, okay, maybe this will help us communicate better. Maybe I'll finally get some real answers. Spoiler alert, it didn't go that way. The first session was basically her laying out everything I've ever done wrong in our marriage. Some of it was fair. I'm not perfect, and I've made my share of mistakes. But a lot of it felt like a stretch. She complained about me working long hours, which I do to keep us financially afloat. She brought up times I wasn't emotionally available, which is rich coming from someone who went on a blind date behind my back. The therapist tried to keep things balanced, but it felt like my wife dominated the conversation. It wasn't until the second session that the therapist started to push back a little. She asked my wife why she thought it was okay to agree to a blind date in the first place. My wife dodged the question, saying it was a lapse in judgment and that she regretted it. By the third session, things really hit the fan. The therapist asked her, "If you're so quick to point out his faults, what are some things you've done wrong in the marriage?" That was all it took for my wife to lose it. She started yelling, saying the therapist was biased and that we were supposed to be there to fix me, not her. It was honestly embarrassing. She stormed out of the office, leaving me and the therapist sitting there in awkward silence. After a few minutes, the therapist told me, "I don't think this marriage can be salvaged." That hit me hard. I admitted to the therapist that my wife had been unfaithful, and she wasn't surprised. She said it explained a lot of the resentment my wife seemed to harbor toward me. She offered to continue working with me individually, and I told her I'd think about it. On the drive home, my wife went on a rant about how the therapist was a quack and how we didn't need counseling anyway. I didn't say much. I was too drained to argue. At this point, I've been on autopilot at home. I moved into the guest room shortly after that, and we barely speak to each other unless it's about the kids or something practical. Speaking of the kids, they've started to pick up on the tension. My youngest asked me the other day why I don't hug mom anymore. That one gutted me. I didn't know how to explain that the person they see as their loving mother is also the person who shattered my trust. The weirdest part of all this is how paranoid my wife has become. She's constantly asking where I am, who I'm talking to, and what I'm thinking. It's like she knows I'm planning my exit, but can't figure out when or how I'm going to do it. She's trying to act like everything's fine, but I see through it. I've been keeping a low profile, working on getting everything in order. I've spoken to a lawyer about what a divorce would look like, especially with her medical situation. The lawyer said her diagnosis could complicate things because she'll likely push for spousal support to cover her treatment. That's another layer of stress I don't need. I've also started going to the gym again. It's been years since I worked out regularly, but I needed an outlet for all this anger and frustration. Lifting weights has been oddly therapeutic. Every time I pick up a dumbbell, I imagine I'm lifting all the crap she's put me through and throwing it away. It sounds cheesy, but it helps. I don't know where things are going from here. Part of me feels guilty for even considering leaving when she's dealing with a serious health issue, but the other part of me knows that staying would only prolong the inevitable. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Writing all this out has been weirdly cathartic. I'll update again if there's any major news, but for now, I'm just taking things one day at a time. Update 3. Hey Reddit, I wish I could say things have calmed down since my last post, but that'd be a lie. The situation hit a new level of insanity this week, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. If you followed my previous posts, you know about the confession, the counseling, and the health diagnosis. What I didn't expect was to get confirmation of her infidelity in the most public and humiliating way possible. It all started at the local grocery store. Now, I live in a small town with fewer than 900 people. Everyone knows everyone, and rumors spread faster than wildfire. I was running errands, minding my business, when I noticed my wife at the other end of the aisle. I almost turned and left because I wasn't in the mood for small talk or forced smiles, but then I saw him. At first, I didn't put two and two together. He was just some random guy walking toward her. But as I got closer, something about the way he approached her felt off. He wasn't just saying hi. He had this confident, almost cocky demeanor, like he knew her well. Too well. I stayed back, pretending to browse the shelves while keeping them in my peripheral vision. My heart was pounding, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Then I heard him ask, "So, when can I see you again?" Are you kidding me? He was asking my wife out right there in the middle of the cereal aisle. She looked panicked. She glanced around, probably hoping I wasn't there to witness this train wreck. She told him no, but her tone wasn't exactly firm. It was more like she was trying to let him down gently, which pissed me off even more. I couldn't stay quiet. I walked up to them and asked, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear, "Is this the guy from your girls' night out?" The look on her face was pure terror. She stammered something about it not being what I thought. But the guy? He just froze. He looked me up and down, probably sizing me up, and then asked, "What's it to you?" Big mistake. Now, I'm not a violent person, but I'm not small either. I'm 6 feet 2 inches, 250 pounds, and I've been hitting the gym hard lately. This guy? He was maybe 5 feet 9 inches and 150 pounds soaking wet. I stepped closer and he backed up into the shelf. I didn't touch him, but my presence alone was enough to make him start stuttering. "I've been her husband for 19 years, I said, keeping my voice low but firm. "So yeah, it's a lot to me." He panicked. He started apologizing, saying he didn't know she was married. Then, without me even asking, he admitted they'd slept together. My wife tried to interrupt, crying and begging me to stop, but I wasn't done. I told him to get out of my sight and that if I ever saw him again, it wouldn't end well for him. He practically sprinted out of the store. My wife was sobbing by then, but I didn't care. I just looked at her and said, "Now I know everything I need to know." I left her there crying in the middle of the aisle and went home. I didn't even feel angry anymore, just numb. For weeks, I'd suspected she was lying about that night, but hearing it confirmed was like a punch to the gut. When she got home, she tried to explain, but I shut her down. I told her I wasn't interested in excuses or half-truths anymore. She admitted that she'd slept with him, but insisted it was a mistake, and that she regretted it immediately. Here's the thing. I might have been able to believe her if she'd come clean from the start, but the way she trickled the truth out over weeks, only confessing when she had no other choice, that killed any chance of reconciliation for me. Since that day, I've been walking around in a fog. I feel like I'm living someone else's life, like this can't possibly be my reality. I look at her and wonder how she could do this to me, to our family. It's like I don't even know who she is anymore. The kids have picked up on the tension, and it's breaking my heart. They don't understand why mom and dad barely speak to each other, or why dad doesn't sleep in the same room anymore. I've been putting on a happy face for their sake, but it's exhausting. To make matters worse, we've started running into this guy all over town. That's the downside of living in a place this small. You can't escape people. He avoids me like the plague, but my wife? She looks like she wants the ground to swallow her whole every time she sees him. At this point, I'm just waiting for the right moment to serve her divorce papers. I've been working with my lawyer to get everything lined up, and it's taking longer than I'd like, but I want to make sure everything is airtight. I don't want her to have any way to wiggle out of this. I've been spending a lot of time at the gym, trying to channel all this anger and pain into something productive. It's the only place where I feel like I have any control over my life right now. I've also started journaling, which is how I've been able to process some of these emotions. Writing it all down helps, but it doesn't erase the hurt. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I can't stay in this marriage. She's tried to apologize and make things right, but it's too little, too late. The damage is done, and there's no going back. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Your support has meant more to me than I can say. I'll update again when there's more to share. For now, I'm just taking it one day at a time. Update 4 point. Hey Reddit, I think this might be my last update for a while. A lot has happened since the grocery store encounter, and I've reached a point where I can't keep spinning my wheels emotionally. The more I think about everything, the clearer it becomes that I need to move forward with purpose. I've been quietly working behind the scenes, getting my plans together while trying to keep things steady for the kids. Let's start with the practical stuff. After the grocery store confrontation, I knew I needed to protect myself legally and financially. I've been in contact with one of the toughest divorce attorneys in the area, someone a friend recommended to me. She didn't sugarcoat anything, which I appreciated. The big issue is, of course, my wife's medical condition. Her diagnosis makes things complicated because the courts might look at me as her financial lifeline. My lawyer explained that even if I can argue that the marriage is over due to her infidelity, there's still a chance I'll be required to provide spousal support, especially since she hasn't worked in over 20 years. That stings, but I'd rather deal with it than stay trapped in this sham of a marriage. The insurance situation is another headache. Right now, her medication costs are covered because my work insurance is primary, and Medicaid kicks in as secondary. If I leave, that dynamic changes. Medicaid would still cover her, but she might face huge copays or have to fight to keep her coverage. I feel for her in that regard. I really do. But it's hard to summon sympathy for someone who only seemed to appreciate what I brought to the table after she got caught cheating. I'm documenting everything now. Finances, her diagnosis, her lack of income, and even the fact that I've been the sole provider for nearly 2 decades. It's tedious, but my lawyer says it'll be crucial during the divorce proceedings. I've also started looking into the best way to split custody of the kids while minimizing the emotional toll on them. Speaking of the kids, they've been my main focus through all of this. I've been trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for them, but it's hard when the tension at home is so thick you could cut it with a knife. My oldest is a teenager, and I think they've started to piece together that something's wrong. They've been spending more time in their room, which hurts because we used to be so close. My youngest, on the other hand, is still blissfully unaware. They asked me the other day if we could all go out to eat as a family like we used to. That one broke me a little. I made up an excuse about being too busy with work, but the truth is, I can't sit across from my wife and pretend everything's fine. Now, on to my wife. Since the grocery store incident, she's been a mess. She's constantly trying to apologize or start conversations about us, but I've shut all of that down. I've told her we can talk about practical matters, bills, schedules, the kids, but anything beyond that is off limits. I can see the panic in her eyes every time I walk past her without saying a word. What's infuriating is how she's trying to guilt me into staying. She keeps bringing up her medical condition, saying things like, "I don't know how I'll survive without your support." The old me might have fallen for that, but not anymore. I see it for what it is. Manipulation. She also keeps asking where I'm going when I leave the house. It's like she's convinced I'm planning something. And in a way, she's right. I am planning something. I'm planning to leave. But I've been careful not to let her catch on. The last thing I need is for her to try and sabotage my exit. I've started moving things out little by little. Just small stuff for now. Important documents, personal items, things she wouldn't notice right away. I rented a small storage unit a few towns over where I'm keeping everything. Once I've got the bigger pieces in place, a place to live, finalized custody plans, etc., I'll make my move. In the meantime, I've been focusing on myself. The gym has become my sanctuary. Every time I lift a weight or run on the treadmill, it feels like I'm shedding a piece of the anger and resentment I've been carrying. I've also started journaling regularly. Writing everything down helps me organize my thoughts and process my emotions without spiraling. I'll admit, there's still a part of me that feels conflicted. Not about leaving, I'm 100% certain that's the right choice, but about how to do it in a way that's best for the kids. They didn't ask for any of this, and I hate that they're going to be caught in the middle. My lawyer says it's crucial to emphasize their well-being during the divorce proceedings, so that's what I'm focused on. One thing that's helped is finding a support group online. It's not the same as having someone in real life to talk to, but it's comforting to know I'm not alone in this. A lot of people in the group have been through similar situations, and their advice has been invaluable. Looking back, it's wild to think how much has changed in just a few months. I went from thinking I had a stable, loving marriage to realizing it was built on lies. But as painful as it's been, I've also learned a lot about myself. I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I deserve better, and that it's never too late to start over. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I'm done living for someone who doesn't value me. My kids deserve a dad who's happy and whole, not one who's stuck in a toxic situation, and I deserve a chance to rebuild my life on my terms. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey, Reddit. Writing all of this out has been a lifeline, and I truly appreciate everyone who's taken the time to comment or offer advice. I'll update again when the dust has settled, but for now, I'm focused on moving forward, one step at a time. Take care, and wish me luck. Final update. Hey Reddit, This will be my final update. A lot has happened since my last post, and I'm finally on the other side of everything. It's been a long, draining process, but I can finally say the divorce is final and I've moved out. First off, thank you to everyone who has followed along and offered advice, support, or just an ear to vent to. Writing these posts has been cathartic, and your responses helped me feel less alone during some of the darkest days of my life. Let me walk you through how everything went down, step by step. After the grocery store confrontation and months of silently planning, I filed for divorce. My lawyer advised me to stay calm and strategic, so I made sure I had all my documents in order: finances, proof of infidelity, and anything that could strengthen my case. The filing itself was straightforward, but serving the papers was intense. I waited until I knew she'd be home and then had her served in person. She was shocked. I think she really believed I'd never go through with it, especially after everything with her medical condition. Her initial reaction was to cry, big, dramatic tears about how she was sorry and couldn't survive without me. But when she realized I wasn't budging, she got angry. She accused me of abandoning her and the kids, which was laughable considering I was the one who kept everything afloat for 19 years. From there, things got messy. She contested the divorce at first, claiming she deserved spousal support and full custody of the kids. The spousal support argument was expected, given her health and lack of income, but the custody claim blindsided me. She's never been the primary caregiver. I've always been the one working overtime to make sure we had everything we needed. My lawyer was a rock star through all of this. She made it clear that I wasn't going to be bullied into an unfair settlement. In the end, we agreed to joint custody, with the kids splitting their time between us. I also agreed to pay spousal support for a limited period, enough to give her time to adjust to life on her own. Once the divorce was finalized, I started packing up my things. I'd already been quietly moving smaller items into a storage unit, but now it was time for the big stuff. It was surreal walking through the house we'd lived in for almost 2 decades, knowing I was leaving it behind. I found a small apartment in a nearby town, just far enough away to get some breathing room, but close enough to be there for the kids. It's not much, but it's mine, and that's what matters. The first night I spent there was a mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and a strange sense of freedom. I won't lie, moving out was harder than I expected, not because of her, but because of the memories. Every room in that house held a piece of my life: birthday parties, family dinners, Christmas mornings. It's tough to let go of that, even when you know it's for the best. If there's one thing I've learned through this process, it's that kids are incredibly resilient. I sat them down after the divorce was finalized and explained everything in age-appropriate terms. I made it clear that none of this was their fault and that both their mom and I loved them very much. The transition hasn't been easy, especially for my youngest. They've asked a lot of questions: why I don't live at home anymore, why mom cries so much, but I've tried to answer them as honestly as I can without dragging them into the drama. My oldest has been more understanding. I think they saw the cracks in our marriage long before I did. They've been my rock through this, even offering to help me move into my new place. We've settled into a routine now. The kids spend weekdays with their mom and weekends with me. It's not perfect, but it works for now. My goal is to make the most of the time I have with them, whether it's playing video games, cooking dinner together, or just talking about their day. As for her, she's still a mess. The reality of the divorce seems to have hit her hard. She's been texting me constantly, alternating between apologizing and accusing me of ruining her life. I've kept my responses short and focused only on matters related to the kids or finances. She's also been struggling with her health, which complicates things. Part of me feels guilty about leaving her in such a vulnerable position, but then I remember everything she put me through. I didn't end our marriage. She did, the moment she decided to betray my trust. She started seeing a therapist, which I think is a step in the right direction. I hope she can find some peace, not for my sake, but for the kids. They need a stable mom, and I'm rooting for her to become that. If you're reading this and going through something similar, my advice is simple: trust your instincts, seek help when you need it, and don't be afraid to walk away from something that's hurting you. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Thanks for sticking with me, Reddit. This community has been a lifeline, and I'll always be grateful for that. Take care of yourselves, and remember, it's never too late to start over.